All right, everybody. Hey, it is Saturday, October 3rd, 2020. Really, dude? Come on, man. Now, I think what we should do, anybody says something stupid from now on, it's, come on, man. In honor of Joe Biden. Joe Biden. There we are. Anyways, so come on, man. Ed, why don't you take it away?
All right, thank you. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us again tonight. Anyhow, I want to get into a couple things about your money is getting ready to change. And don't forget, the European Central Bank runs your Federal Reserve. See, it is interesting that, people don't get the system. And I'm glad to see that some people out there are slowly getting it with some of their groups, but they're still not getting the whole circumstances here. You got to remember, you take religion out of your life and out of this system. Religion is not the system. Religion is for those who believe in the churches and all that. Otherwise, if you're going to believe into the Constitution and the native treaties, that means you have rights. You go into the other side, you have no rights. You have privileges that are granted to you by the privilege of the central bank. See, that's the one thing that people don't realize, We've been covering your birth certificate insurance fund. We're covering how the finances work. And see, this is the best part about it, is knowing how these things work. We've got a lot of groups that are slowly getting it, but they're still out there misleading, misguiding, and getting other people paying stuff out of their pocket, which is ridiculous. We've dealt with that here recently, where people have sent money back to some of these other groups, and don't worry, we're promising you all this stuff, and then when they send the money, they get no promise. And so it amazes me how these people follow these sheep or, buffalo off the cliff. Because you're saying you want to protect yourself, but then again, you're not protecting yourself because you haven't filed to own yourself. And then you got these groups out there going, oh, don't listen to Ed. He doesn't know what he's talking about, file to own yourself. And it's like, yes, you do. Even your UCC1 filing, I know a lot of people have done that, but you have to file to own that. If you haven't filed to own it, the state still owns it. The British government still owns it. And you got to realize everything that you do around your life falls to the British government and religion. Okay, that's what life's really about. The rest of it doesn't exist. So if you're not paying attention to that, and if you want to live that life, then you're in slavery instead of freedom. And so this is the point where they're coming up going, with the central bank, because they want to get rid of paper money. They want to go to digital account, is what Nancy Pelosi and everybody's pushing for. Oh, and I guess your stimulus check is in the mail. The new ones will be in the mail coming out here next week. So pay attention to that. And it is your money, your assets. I got people saying, well, I said I take the money. It's your money. So, and yes, it goes on a deal where, if you have to do a deal on it. But see, the other thing, too, is that I wouldn't, file any tax paperwork on it myself, so I never do that. I never file any paperwork. So that's the one thing that you've got to protect yourself. Because you got to remember, nobody else cares about you but you. And if you don't care about you, nobody cares about you. See, this is the frustration we're going through today. I'm watching all these groups going out here and bringing up all this stuff out there and getting people still off in these little channels, and they're not accomplishing anything. And that is the one thing that you've got to remember. You have to accomplish this for you. If you don't sit there and accomplish this stuff, this is where you're losing your stuff, your assets. This is the frustration that, you're controlled by the bank, the state. And so, some people like that. Some people like it. But if you do like it, sorry about that, because you have no rights. And so filing your rights means something. That means you're claiming, you're making a stance, you're claiming you. You know, it's like what I had with my ex-fiance, my ex-wife too. You know, we signed instruments back and forth to each other, so that way we covered each other. People say, oh, well, if you didn't have this, or, you know, if you have a medical situation, you know, they have to get clearance for you to talk to them. If you sign the affidavits back and forth to each other that you have the legal and lawful rights, you know, that's the whole point, getting this stuff out, so that way you have rights, not privileges. So, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor. I'm still fighting my dental situation. I still got a swollen tongue. I still got a chunk out of it, and still got to figure out why it feels like I got something stabbed in it. But
all participants are unmuted.
So, anyhow, me and the chief have gone over a few things, and so the last couple weeks, so I want to bring that up so you guys can start paying attention to the research we've been accomplishing and the research that, you know, we've been putting out, and everybody else is starting to figure it out. So, hey, Chief, go ahead.
Oh, will it go around in circles? Anyhow, good evening, everybody. I've been bouncing things around. Also, we were checking into the land patent situations.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what I had my head in this week, and found a very interesting thing that leads back to the native treaties. It's called Aboriginal Title. And then there were some other studies that some other people did that I tapped in on, and I was checking them out, and it led back to, believe it or not, an agricultural. Everything seems to funnel down to the agricultural.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have to study on that on the Farm Act situation to see how that coincides with each other. But yeah, the money thing is kind of bizarre right now because, you know, nobody knows exactly what that. You know, we were praying that they were going to get some gold and silver backing it. We're not seeing any, you know, issues behind that at this point in time. There's rumors that it does have it. We just have no confirmation. So, so we actually get that. We'll have to kind of put that in flotational mode.
Yeah, let's make that known that you got a lot of people out there saying that they could do this, they could do that, but, you know, like Chief says, we want proof.
Well, the other one is, you know, they're saying that you can do this, but everything is based upon contracting, and I don't think that's going to change, you know. So, you know, that's the idea is when we speak about contracting, you want to modify it to the means of what you have in your life. You know, what is your situation? I mean, if you're married and you've got 5 children, you've got to consider you're married and you have 5 children. And how are you going to construct your contractual situations?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when you want to file for yourself, you're filing for yourself, you know, your spouse, your children, and opposite from the spouse, you know, and that seems to be, you know, one of the things. And then, you know, right now, because we're in a state of emergency because of the COVID-19 situation, there's a lot of debts going on out here. And, you know, really all you have to do is challenge the debt. Have them prove that they actually have a debt, that you owe them something. Because in reality, it's your credit coming out of that Social Security account and from your birth certificate that covers that. You are the banker, you know. So even if you have a bank account, you know, how do you think they get funds? So they need people like us to actually have a bank account so that they can get those digits so they can go to the Treasury and borrow. So, you know, these are the things that we try to get across to people. And, you know, there's a lot of information out here. I don't try to put anybody down, neither does Ed. It's just that we're concerned, you know, that we want to come together so that we can all get on, you know, the same board.
And the other point on it, so we're on the same board, and that is the whole point, that we've got to start standing up on this stuff. Because this is the point. Like I said, we've got all these people claiming all this stuff, but who's really doing it?
Well, you know, that's the other one. I watched a couple videos this week, and there's a group that's coming together out there that, you know, they're even getting to the point where they're passing numbers back and forth, so in case you get into a situation, You can call somebody. So you actually have people backing you up if there's some kind of incident, even on the side of the road with these robber barons or pirates. So, that was a very interesting situation. I thought that was, rather interesting and collectively cool of them to do that because, they're backing each other up, and that's what we all have to do, even when it comes to these courtroom situations, the more the merrier.
We've been fighting that for years, trying to get enough people in the courtrooms, because you need that audience in the courtroom in front of the judge. And see, that's the point, is that when you go into these courtrooms, you're going into a foreign government. How come you're not filing on that?
Well, and then that's the other one is, when you've done your startup to the point where you actually own yourself, that puts you in a different position with them because when you're in that courtroom, if they think they own you.
That's right.
They literally think they own you. And if you don't own yourself and can't prove it, and you don't have the paperwork in play, which, many people are out here saying you don't have to do that, which you can go that route. But, has not been my experience, and I don't think it's been anybody else's experience. So that's at this point in time, things are changing, and, we're hoping spiritually that it does change the fact that, they start to recognize things. So, that was the interesting one. That's one of the reasons why I got into the building land management situation, land patent. Unfortunately, that still connects you to the British Empire.
Yep,
So,
that's the whole point, that people are not comprehending that reality.
Yeah, so that's why, and somebody did a unique twist on that. They actually did an agricultural situation, but they did comprehend the rules and regulations behind it and the guidelines. And, the debtor is the U.S. government. The debtor is your state that you live in. They're the debtors, okay, in reality. They want to make you part of that debt. And that's why you kind of want to do the paperwork so you're not part of that debt. You're the creditor, and you can extend that. They're not playing
the big point, the biggest point there is that you got to, I had a brain fart. I ended up on this passage for this creek bed. But the biggest point on it is that they want to be able to say when you go to court that they own you. Remember, a lawyer can only represent a corporation, cannot represent a living man. An attorney can only represent a corporation, not a living man. So when you file to own yourself, you're walking in with your papers to present them to the corporation from the corporation, not as a living man. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, that puts you in more of a creditor position than a debtor position. When you walk in, they think you're dead. That's what debt means. It means death. So, you're walking dead, basically. They kind of give these shows to give you a little information as to what they're really telling you. They just don't want to come out and, exactly say it. It's just like the whole system, the way it's designed. They catch you, it's kind of like catch and release. They catch you, they bring you in, then they release you. They want you to sign some documents or, paperwork, contracts so that they can release you, and then they can actually borrow your credit. And the opposing attorney that you're going against is actually the one who's trying to move into the trustee position. So, if you want to control your affairs, this is how you have to set yourself up. And, that's the idea behind it is, the trust was created so that everything was prepaid, but you have to know how to handle it. And that's the biggest issue here is and it's not an easy, it can be simple. There's a lot of information, a lot of groups out here that give out information. They give out good information. But it's a risk at any point in time. You never know because, one of the things that one of the people actually said one day and made total sense. The man said, the judge goes by the last case that he just pretty much went through.
Mm-hmm.
And they change up in a heartbeat. The case before you could be a fantastic one because they knew what they were doing. And then you get up there and you don't know what you're doing and you're getting bombarded and you have no idea. You can't even speak. They railroad you, and that's really what it is. It's a railroad revenue racket, which falls under RICO. So, and we all know that it's.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
we all know that it's a fraudulent situation and a counterfeit situation, and we're all learning, day by day, and it's coming a whole lot quicker now because there's a whole lot more people out there that are, doing the awakening and becoming aware. And like I said, there's a lot of good people out there doing a lot of good research, and passing it back and forth is what we really need. And there's, you can get information, pretty much free. Sometimes, you have to, do a little research, and it takes time because, we know how computers work. They're not perfect. You can type in something that you want, and if, like you type in something like title, if you're not specific on what title you're looking for, it's going to give you the meaning of what the word title means. If you're looking for a specific land title situation, or vehicle title, whatever, once you define it and refine it a little bit, and it does happen to be with words, it depends on what words you type in there for the information you're going to get. So.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's putting the information in correctly and knowing that when you do your autograph, you're signing your assets. So you have to know exactly what your ass is doing. And this is the point that most people don't get, because people still don't comprehend that we're still fighting the corporations because the state wants to dictate to you how you're living. Right now, I'm reading the email from Department of Fish and Wildlife, because now they want to be able to change the permit structure with natives. And see, this the whole point is that, we got to sit there and make our standing. I don't have to sit there and register myself with the British government, called the federal government. They have to register themselves with me. That's what the treaties say. So when you start reading these treaties and start comprehending how these things are supposed to work, that's why I have fun with a lot of people that tell me, "Oh, Ed, you just don't get it," And it's like, because they want to go by religion first. They don't want to go by the treaties. They don't want to go by history. They don't want to go by the history that these religious people came from foreign countries to come into this soil and tell us how to live. These people don't have a right, And see, this is the deal, is that, it includes, knowing that, subsistence fisheries, you can hunt and fish without a license. You can gill net, you can net, you can even fish with your hands. And they can't tell you you can't, because you have a right to subsistence and feed yourself. So the other point I got to pull up here that I wanted to get straightened out for people to comprehend this one, because it's very simple. It's like the forest. It's ours. The fish is ours. The land is ours. The soil is ours. And see, this is the one thing that, and I was putting out, now we got more and more doctors coming out on COVID. Now they're saying that Trump has got COVID-19. And it's like, okay, what kind of bullshit is this? Because we know COVID-19, SARS, whatever, basically is the common cold. And so how are we going to stop these things from going on by these criminals? Because they just passed another budget for $2.2 or $2.8 trillion. Okay, so you'll get a check for $1,200 to $1,300, depends on whatever. And so when it really comes down to it, this is the money that they're supposed to pay us the interest. Now, they were talking about paying us $1,200 a month for 3 years. So what happened to that? See, we got to get back on these things, because this is our stuff. It's like the other point is, what branch of the government do the police, cops, corporations, sheriffs, deputies, district attorneys, legislative branch, executive branch? And people will say, we only got 3 branches of government. That's bullshit. We have 4. The first branch is we, the people, the natives. Read your Constitution and treaty. Then the other one goes to Legislative Council and Administration. So, go ahead.
Don't forget to include the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Constitution, and beginning paragraphs. Pay special attention to them because they're constructed almost identical, and that's for your freedom. Okay.
You're going in and out, Chief.
So that's your freedom. That's not their freedom. Okay. So, that's the idea, is to learn what your freedoms are really there, what rights you have. And, there's a difference between RITES, which is the spiritual side of it, and RIGHTS. So, and then they do it by WRITS. So, literally you've got to look at what they're stating in some of these laws. And yes, there's thousands upon thousands. I think, what was it last time we checked? What was it, like 60 million out here in this country alone, Ed? And it's actually smaller across the big pond there. It's actually smaller for them. We have more here than they have in anywhere else pretty much in the world. So, it is a bit of a challenge, but, that's why we try to come together and do as much as we can. I don't know how to, I can't speak for Ed, but I know that I probably put in 40, 60 hours a week just, constantly reading things to get more information to figure out, what we can do in order to protect ourselves. Back to you, Ed.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, is respecting ourselves. And that's the point that people are not getting. It's like you go in these administrative rules, and you got to realize they're administrative rules of the corporation. I mean, I was sitting there talking to somebody on the phone, and it was great to watch epiphany in their voice. And I said, well, isn't the police department a private corporation? And they're going, oh, no, the city corporation. And I said, yeah, go ahead and type it in what a city corporation is. And so the individual did that, and they went, wait a minute, they don't exist. Now you're catching on. That's like when a cop writes a ticket or a citation, he is impersonating a lawful American grand jury, because the grand jury is the only one that could issue tickets and fines. But see, people are not reading the structure. And if you keep talking about persons, no person is supposed to hold a government office, because a person does not exist. And they say that the sheriff is a member of the executive branch, all right? That's the only one that they're claiming. But the sheriff didn't even come into effect until Abraham Lincoln, because the sheriff deputy was the security guard, or what they call, Secret Service today. Because the sheriffs are the original founded as Secret Service. The federal marshals are the only law enforcement agency that actually has rights in this country. And this goes back to the foreign policy, and this is part of the 1860, the Republic, and everybody keeps putting Republican form. It's Republic. There is no N at the end. The forefathers never did Republican. They did Republic. And I see that, it gets changed in writings. And that's the one thing that people are not paying attention, that, they keep changing things in the writings so that way you become a condition to what you're reading, just like the kids today. And don't forget the 11th Amendment. And that means the states cannot participate. And what was that? Violation of business licenses, hunting and fishing, driver's license, and also, too, with that, a driver's license searches without a search warrant. They can't take your license or anything like that when you paid for a contract for that agreement. It's been, well over almost 2 decades now since I've had state paperwork. I filed my rights, told them they could take a flying hike. I publicized it in the newspaper. That's why they robbed my house, so that way I couldn't finish the rest of the filings that I wanted to file. Because what I was going to be doing with that one, and once I set the precedent, then, everybody could file it. And also, too, remember that they're going after people for mental reservations. So COVID virus is a mental reservation because, it's a common cold or SARS, whatever you want to call it this week. And so we've got to pay attention to these things, what they're doing, and these guys in these positions know exactly what they're doing, but they're hoping that you're not educated enough so that way they could, control you. And see, and also, too, in 1952, the wiretapping case does still exist, and that is what the cops need to do, obedience to the law, and that is the point that you have to file for this.
18341.
Go ahead.
18341 for a quick break enter.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's 18 U.S.C. What are you talking about?
1341. Look it up. 18 U.S.C. 1341. And there's a list of stuff that'll follow that. I actually posted that today. I don't know if I sent it to you, but usually when I post it, you catch up on it. So.
Well, usually I do, but the other point, like I said, I've been on Facebook in a week because they booted me off, and so I'm waiting for some people to send me the code so I can get back into Facebook, because I still don't comprehend how all of a sudden I got thrown off and I couldn't even go any direction to Facebook to do it, and I had to go through this direction now.
Oh,
so it sort of threw me off.
48 hours ago, they changed everything on Facebook. They've gone. They decided to challenge, and what they're doing now is they're saying that if they don't feel the content's right, they can remove it immediately. They're also saying they have the right to invade your privacy, your photos, everything. So, this is where we're at. It's becoming like, what was that movie? Wasn't it 1984 with the computer named Hal?
Yeah. Actually, there was a movie, too, that in 1934 that was done. The first one that was done.
Well, you see, and that's why we talk about 1861 a lot. In 1861, the entire thing went to the International Monetary Fund, and that became corporations. And corporations are telling you what you can and what you cannot do in this world at this point in time. So it's really whatever the bankers decide investment-wise they think they can make a profit off of is what they're putting you through. So, and that's why we have to stand up as men and women and even children. This is stuff you need to teach your children. When you feel comfortable enough and you think they're at the age of time they need to be knowing these things, which is probably early teens, they need to know their rights. I watched a video not too long ago with a young man who was 15, and they came in and, basically pushed through the door and grabbed his dad and had him in handcuffs and were getting ready to walk him away, and the kid was just spouting off left and right. At age 15, he knew law better than most kids. And they finally had to just kind of uncuff the dad and kind of let him, go about his way. So, but, that's the other thing. Neighbors got involved to see what was going on. And that's the idea. We have to pass this information to people that we know, or at least the ones that are willing to listen.
Mm-hmm. That is the whole point. Getting your neighbors to stand up with you. That is a hard point because people don't stand up. They're too scared today. They're so conditioned.
Exactly, and that's part of the issue is they're conditioned to believe this is the way it's supposed to be, and what else other way is there? Well, the design was that if you're a flesh and blood man, woman, or child, that these rules don't apply to you in reality. And that's the whole way this thing was designed. It does not apply to you in reality. But if you're going to ask for some kind of privilege or some kind of benefit, because they're stating that they're the trustees above that trust, but they're also the ones that created the trust. Now, did they come to us when we were younger and when we were in school and said, okay, well, we kind of made this trust for you, and now you need to know how to operate it? No, they didn't do that. They decided as long as, just because you go out and use Federal Reserve notes or whatever, negotiable instruments, you should automatically know these things. You should have already studied. Well, then how did all these lawyers and judges get to where they are if they didn't have to go to school for years upon years? I mean, what is the average, 8 to 12 years?
Mm-hmm. So. And don't forget, the cop owes a special privilege and duty to his administrative contract. The statute codes and administrative codes.
Yeah, and that's the sad part when they're pulling you over. A lot of people don't comprehend it, but when you're on the side of the road and they've pulled you over, like Ed said, they're actually conducting, court right there on the side of the road. And they're conditioned, mentally, physically, to pretty much abuse you verbally and get you into a verbal binding contract. Nowadays they're even having you try to sign paperwork out on the side of the road with no intermediary, or, you don't even have the choice of, do you want a lawyer?
Well, Texas was introducing a paperless society, so if a cop pulls you over, you just sign on your credit card right on the spot and pay your fine right then.
Yeah, which, right there, they're getting money, right there, that should tell you you're the banker. You're the one they need the credit from. They need your endorsement so that they can borrow from the Treasury, the way they set it up. And that's the sad part. Why isn't they can't be a little forthcoming? And, if it was designed to help everyone, why is it not helping us? Why is it only helping them acquire more, and we get less and less and less and less?
And don't forget, the major point is that you can always ask a cop for his license of business, his license of insurance, and most of all, his concealed license, because if he doesn't have that, he cannot have a possession of a firearm. See, he's not going by arms, he's going by firearm.
And a lot of people don't know it, but that holster usually has a flap over it. Therefore, it is concealed by that flap over top of it. That's one of the things that when you have the right to bear arms, usually if you have one in a holster, 9 out of 10 times it does not have a strap across that holster. Therefore, it's open and carry, not concealment.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, too, I've concealed firearms for years, as they call it, because I've always carried since I was 16, and my whole point is that I have a constitutional right, and I'm not entering into like a concealed license permit or something like that, because when I enter into that contract, I sign my rights over to that corporation, and I give up my rights to that corporation to decide if I have the right to possess my Constitution or not.
Well, it leads back to they actually believe you're on.
Go ahead.
Rights to your Constitution? Come on, man.
Are you?
And don't forget, people, you could always say, break in, or say interrupt, my turn, or something like that.
Are you saying
you don't have to be bashful. Go ahead.
Are you saying common man or come on, man?
Actually, the whole like Borden, Joe Borden. Come on, man.
Well, his commercials. Let me ask you a favor. And it's like, if you got to ask me a favor to give up my rights, and it's like he came out and said to the kids, the state owns you, you don't have rights. You got to ask permission from the government. And how come that's not being played all over the national news?
Well, and that's exactly what he and Kamala, whatever her name is, Harry Butt, is trying to do. They're trying to make it so they take away the right to work. See, everything out here is commerce, and that's what they're playing on, is that you're in commerce. Okay, if you're not involved in any kind of commercial activity, you're not in commerce. You're just not in it. Okay, and you can step in between commerce and private at any point in time. They assume when you're out, they assume and presume that when you're out in public, you're in commerce because you're in the public. You can still be private and be in the public. If you're hanging out with your friends, you might be out in the public and you might be a group of friends, but you might be a group of private, men and women just out having the time to sit down, talk, break bread, or discuss some things of what's going on. But that's how they try to goat rope you into it. They automatically assume that you're operating in commerce. And that's the distinction you have to be able to make, is, explain to them I'm not operating commerce. So.
Well, it's like that's the main thing. And you got to realize on your 14th Amendment, it's like, you don't have to show your papers in a grand jury. It's the only one who could file and sign a warrant. A judge cannot. And that could even go to Gerstein versus Pugh, 420 U.S. 103-117, 1975.
One of my relatives was involved in something?
Yeah, I don't know. Mine has never been involved either. And this is the point that, reading this stuff, when you file this stuff, and they say it doesn't matter, I don't go by that rule. Well, then we have to say we have to have your rule in writing, so that way we could file on it. See, the courts are determining probable cause, which I don't like probable cause, because probable cause says, well, if I farted in the wind and it stinks, that's probable cause to write you up because it stunk. Even though that it dissipates and is not there after a certain period of time, but they're still going by the fantasy of probable cause. And so that means before issue warrant, and this is Carolina versus Fletcher, 522 U.S. 118 at 129 December 10th, 1997. So you got to remember, some of these court cases on warrants and stuff are only in the last 35, 40 years. Because your public employees didn't go out of the realm and step out of that because your elders that were around that worked in the system had more respect. And so that's the other point, dealing with the COVID virus and Obamacare and the medical servant of public service and funding. Remember, your hospitals are publicly owned by you. They're a corporation, but their employees are owned by you. Read their administration. And I have the deal, too, how you can sue them, too. And this is one thing that I was talking to somebody today with the Men's Correlation League. And they're like, we have all these lawsuits and class action lawsuits. And I'm like, oh, so how much are you waiting for yourself and how much are their clients getting? You got to remember, they're doing all this for their corporation and themselves. They ain't doing this for the people. Because if they were, how come the client ain't getting $14 million or whatever, and they get only $500,000 or something? Oh, that's right. We need to put all the other money back in the corporation so we can keep it running. But then they go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up. FDIC website, 8,000 miscellaneous statutes and regulations, Statute 1306, participation by financial institutions. Whoever knowingly violates Section 5136A of the revised statutes of the United States, Section 9A of the Federal Reserve Act, or Section 20 of the Federal Deposit Insurance Act shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year, or both, codified to 18 U.S.C. 1306. And then you have frauds and swindles. That's Statute 1341 from Title 18 we were talking about. Then you also have fraud by wire, radio, or television, Statute 1343.
Don't forget, isn't that mail fraud?
Oh, well, we're probably going to get to that one because it's Statute 1344 is the bank fraud. And then Statute 1517, obstruction examination of financial institution. Statute 1905, disclosure of confidential information generally. 1906, Statute 1906, disclosure of information from a bank examination report, which the courts are operating in bank. Okay, so Statute 909, examiner performing other services. Statute 1956, laundering of monetary instruments. Ooh, there's a cute one.
And don't forget, your courts are a bank.
Yep. That's what they're doing. They're operating because they need your credit because the country is in bankruptcy. That leads back to HJR 192. House Joint Resolution 192.
That's where they were supposed to give us relief on this stuff. On a 1040 and a 1099 and 1190 form.
Well, we're finding out that you can also do that in your private capacity and modify those. You'll probably find out, like Ed and I have, that there's a section in there that says, under penalty of perjury. How can you perjure yourself? That goes against your Fifth Amendment right. How can you perjure yourself? Because that goes under your Fourth Amendment right. Okay, let's see. Statute 1957, engaging in monetary transactions in property derived from specific unlawful activity. Now, mind you, these are their rules. And these are the rules that sometimes we need to be aware of. Here's my favorite. 2113, bank robbery and incidental crimes. Whoever by force or violence or by intimidation takes or attempts to take from the person or presence of another or obtains or attempts to attain by extortion any property or money or any other thing of value belonging to or in the care, custody, control, management, or possession of any bank, credit union, or any savings and loan association, and it continues. So you see, these are the things that you've got to become aware of. You know, like I said, Ed and I really kind of, I don't know, I'm getting pretty good at surfing without a surfboard these days.
Mm-hmm. And remember, this Title 8, U.S.C. 1481, that's your public employees. They take, what is that, an oath of office and a relinquished citizenship. So that means they are 100 liable for their actions. You know, and this become a foreign agency under the statute dealing with Switzerland or the state. That means every public office. So that means every elected and public servant is a public officer. You know, and freedom does not participate, and here's the one thing, freedom not to participate in healthcare insurance programs. All right, this is 42 U.S.C. code 18115. Oh, you have to get a vaccination. Oh, you have to pay this health insurance. You have to do this. No, here's the law says I can be exempt. Because what? I'm a native. You don't own me. So that means Obamacare is a fraud. And I've already put a hell of a long deal letter out on it. And I got another one I'll be sending out. Excuse me. But you cannot be penalized for not buying a government contract. And that is the one thing that people don't realize, that, oh, I have to buy this government contract because if I don't, they're going to put me in jail. You know, God, I mean, I went through that fear in the 70s, 80s, and 90s when I tried to do that. And, of course, I never got into student loans or anything. I got very blessed in that dumbass because I wasn't going to sit there and put myself in a liability. And don't forget, 4506A form, nonprofit identities. You can file on them to prove their money, their income. That's your right, not a privilege. And that's even your right if you are a corporation. Because they have to... Go ahead.
No. Keep going. I just want to... When you get done, let me know.
All right. But see, that's the whole point. You got to remember that they're liable, not you. Now, they turn the liability, and if you don't know your law, and that means what they call a statute code and administrative rule, non-profit structure, you know, or business, you know, because remember, you are going by your birth certificate registration as a business corporation. Until you file to own that business corporation, the corporation owns it out of England. That's the Vatican. That's your churches. I don't give a damn what religion you claim. You know, all religion is the same thing. Roman Catholic Church, same. Baptism, same. There is no difference in religion. But see, people don't comprehend that. They want to go by the standard because, you can even go by the Mormon standard when they put in the Mormons and they started their own structure. Think about it. Go ahead, Chief.
Don't forget the backup on that. And then the reason he said that is because we both know, and he has a tendency to forget from time to time, to throw that little statute out there, and that is because they go under a tax code of 501c3 or 508ca, C1. There's different situations. Now, here's an interesting one. If we're actually the bank under 18 Statute 2314, transportation of stolen goods, securities, monies, fraudulent state tax stamps, or articles used in counterfeiting.
Identity theft.
Right. Whoever transports, transmits, or transfers in interstate or foreign commerce any goods, wares, merchandise, securities, or money of the value of $5,000 or more. I don't know, Ed, do you think I'm a little less than $5,000 or more? Knowing the same to have been stolen, converted, or taken by fraud, or whoever having devised or intending to devise a scheme or artifacts to defraud, or for obtaining money or property by means of false or fraudulent pretenses, representations, or promises, transports, or causes to be transported, or induces any person or persons to travel in or to be transported in interstate or foreign commerce in the execution or concealment of a scheme or artifice to defraud that person or those persons of money or property having a value of $5,000 or more. And it continues. This is why we have, discussions about this every week. 18 Statute 3056, powers, authorities, and duties of the United States Secret Service.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't my unique friend Ed just talking about that just minutes ago? So you see, which is ironic because Ed can think of something. He don't even have to call me, and I'll be on the same subject when he calls. It's starting to get me a little creeped out when he does that.
What? When I call you and we just started talking, and it's like, how did you know what I was thinking?
Well, the fact that you were studying the same thing I was at the same time has just been amazing here lately in the last, 3 months? I think the last 90 to 120 days, we've almost been on the same page. So that's the 18 Statute 3002Title28USC, powers, authorities, and duties of the United States Secret Service Uniform Division. We briefly touched on that before we even got on this. And, 18 Statute 3293, financial institution offenses. Let's see, 18 Statute 3322, disclosure of certain matters occurring before a grand jury. It's amazing how I just looked this up this morning, and my brother Ed, he must be on that spiritual wavelength again with me tonight. And here he brings it up, and here we have it already. So, but then again, that's because we actually get a little bit like-minded. I've run into a few other people that I've become friends with that are on the same page. It's amazing. Somebody was talking to me. They were wanting to know about, land patent situations. And ironically, when they contact me, I was right in the middle of a video explaining exactly how all some of that stuff works. So, we are coming together consciously because of the awareness. So.
Well, and also, too, to get in this thing, because when you go to 42 U.S.C. 18115 directly contracts under federal law the IRS under 26 U.S.C. 5000A requirement to maintain minimum essential coverage. Okay, now that's on your birth certificate. They have basic essential coverage on you for your life, your death, for your medical, for everything. It's already prepaid. And you got to remember the states, and everybody keeps going, well, the states have more rights than the feds. No. The federal government is the law, under the law of the land or the soil by the treaties. And we put that whole point. And see, this is the whole point that it comes under with 42 U.S.C. 18115 versus 26 U.S.C. 5000A that keeps an army of lawyers and business personnel and tied up in courts to legislate and appeal your life for years. So unless you put a deal to stop the appeals and say we're resolving this issue by this date, and you could actually do that, you know, and people don't realize under the Social Security Act, I've been talking about that for some time. People think that the Social Security is a private corporation, it was done and this, da-da-da. Halvering versus Davis, 301 U.S. 619, 1937, was the discussion of the United States Supreme Court that Social Security was constitutional permissible. It turns out it was, because it was for only Native Americans. It was not for foreign diplomats or foreign corporations. That means the 1938 Foreign Administration Act, they had to put their own insurance bonds up. They couldn't go and use ours off of the Social Security Act.
Which changed in 1945.
That when they did after they did the Administration Act of 1940.
Yep. And what happened there was the actual situation was they needed funds for war, so they decided to create the IRS for 2 years. It was only supposed to be from basically I think it was 1945 through 47.
It was supposed to start 1943.
Yeah, I think it was 44 through 46.
It was 43 because we didn't end up in war technically into 44. But they started that to start raising funds.
And then they never ended it. See, they were
That's right. We're living that. That's why we've had the Vietnam War, the Persian Gulf War, all this other bullshit.
So.
And so this is the point that, you know, people go religion. Churches and religion organizations do not give you lawful American rights. You know, you can't take something away from you if you have a right to it. But if you're going to go call yourself a citizen, remember they changed the large C to the small c to corporation of the 14th Amendment. So when it comes down to it, I don't use the word citizen. You know, I use the term lawful bloodline native. Even when I filed in the last election, they panicked because I filed as a bloodline native. Oh, you have to file as an independent. You have to file as a Republican. I said, Democrat, where does the law say that? Well, here's statute so-and-so. And I said, that's your statute. That's not the law because I'm native. Doesn't native law supersede your statute? You know, they didn't want to really discuss that, but I have a message going, yes, it's true, Ed. See, they know that.
And then doesn't that fall under a little bit of 18 U.S. Code Statute 14 with fictitious obligations?
Yeah, and that's financial obligation, too, what they get paid for their enjoyment of employment.
Yeah, and then that actually leads to the mail fraud in that little section by itself. A little introduction to it. Public Law 104-28, Division A, Title 1, Statute 101F, Title 6, Statute 648B1, Title 2, Statute 2603B1, September 30th, 1966, or 1996, excuse me. So, you know.
Always remember, the City of London is the Vatican Corporation. It's not going to change. Canada, India is all part of that. Remember, India is still a British colony. People say they separated. No, they didn't, because the corporation bank still runs their finances. See, I mean, step out and learn this stuff. People go, oh, it doesn't work that way. And it's like, you guys are hearing something that doesn't even exist because you're going by stuff that somebody's telling you. And, you know, we want you to be able to do the research. We want it in your hand. We want it, if you have to go to a kangaroo court, you're sitting deciding if you want to slaughter that kangaroo or not. Because remember, when you get brought into these kangaroo courts, it's the meat that you're going in for. That's the way they look at for you as meat. Municipality corporation is the British foreign agent legal term for local governing body, including but not limited or necessarily limited to cities, counties, towns, townships, corporations, charters, township, villages. You know, oh, we need to have a village, raise the people, as terrorist Clinton says. You know, because that way we have to have a village because you're not capable of raising your own kid and being responsible. You know, this is the one thing that when it comes down to is knowing what the corporation, the British colonies is. You know, if you go back to the 14th Amendment, even if you go back further, you know, when they first started this country, remember, they brought their religion and their structure on this soil. You know, and where the chief lives up in Virginia, it's the same structure. They're still going by common law. We're not common law. Common law is British administrative rules. That way, if I agree and you agree, that's common law, so that way you don't have a right because I said you don't have a right because we agreed. That's like the thing that I hold up every once in a while with the structure with the Tin Man and, you know, Alice in Wonderland and all of that, where you know they had a meeting and poor straw man, a guy, you know, got burned up. Well, we voted on it. You were the last man out. You know, we were able to vote on this issue, so you were our heat.
Let me back you up on that one.
Go ahead.
This is one I found. The United States was the first jurisdiction to acknowledge the common law doctrine of aboriginal title, also known as original Indian title or Indian right of occupancy. Native American tribes and nations established aboriginal title by actual, continuous, and exclusive use and occupancy for a long time. Individuals may also establish aboriginal title if their ancestors held title as individuals. Unlike other jurisdictions, the content of aboriginal title is not limited to historical or traditional land uses. Aboriginal title may not be alienated except to the federal government or with the approval of Congress. So you see, everything is stacked against you. This is why you have to, you know, comprehend the things that are out here and read some things.
That's like, for example, the state of Oregon says that they can't sell public land without the vote of the people. Yeah. And you people don't even know what the hell you're voting for.
Well, you know, we got lucky here because we did get a win, what was it, 2020? I think it was 2016, excuse me. When Trump returned the treaties, what was the eastern, southern section of Oklahoma came back into the hands of the natives.
Right.
So, you know,
that was started in 2017.
Yeah.
When he signed the executive order.
Yeah, and we're trying to figure out some because we found some old documents that were not properly done. So we're hoping that will, we can bring that to light to the strange people down there on Capitol Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Joe won't like it, but hey, who cares?
Come on, man.
Yeah.
We gotta do that. You gotta do a soundbite for that one. Come on, man, that you can play.
Now, do you want me to use my voice for it, or do you want me to actually get a clip of Biden himself?
Or you can do a digital analysis voice. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Do we have anybody out there to jump in tonight, or what's going on?
Well, I guess we got people just... Go ahead. Did somebody burp?
No, I was going to ask you, Chief, I had sent you an email. I know I got it right. But anyway, also sent you a friend request on Facebook. Still waiting to be accepted. No, my question is
well, as soon as I get back on Facebook, yeah.
Which one was that? I've gotten like, believe it or not, like 30 to probably 60 friend requests in the last 2 weeks because I've been popping around on some other talk issues.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to
It was on Facebook under your real name, and then under Chief Willie with a Y, J @gmail.com. I sent you an email. Remember we had talked about the
what's your email address?
David.brister69 @gmail.com.
Okay.
Anyway, no, my question is this: y'all were talking about the hospitals and stuff, and that they're actually free, and that something about we could request stuff from them. The thing is that also y'all said something about that. I guess we could fire them or something like that, because the first one I would go for is the charge master, the one that's jacking up all the prices on all the medical bills that they're sending out to everybody after you've gone to the hospital.
Right. I don't know. I don't get those. I don't get bills.
Well,
we know you don't, Ed.
Well, see, I signed on my rights, so I filed my rights, so it's in the hospital and stuff, and I filed on the doctors and stuff. If I die, they're liable. Because if it turns out that I died because of they didn't give me some medicine that would have saved my life, they are liable with their home and assets and their children. See, I mean, doctors can sit there and prescribe stuff to make you live or die.
Well, I see where he's going with this. I comprehend where he's going on that one. Charging $5 for, an aspirin and another $5 for another aspirin. You got to have two.
Right.
I got lucky in my younger life. I dated a very beautiful blonde-haired thing who worked for a place called, what was that? I can't remember the name. It was an assisted living home for basically the retired governmental people out of D.C.
Okay.
And she was the actual one who had to call and make adjustments on the paperwork when it came to hospitals. And she was Godwin House West was the name of it, now that I remember. And she was good at her job, man. She really was. She would call them and say, okay, I just can't see justifying $10 for 2 pieces of aspirin when the bottle costs $3.49. I mean, are you charging for the transportation to go pick it up when it's delivered to you? These are the questions you got to be able to, it really, I hear D-Day laughing in the background there, and he can attest to this. I have a very common sense with a common thought process, so I can get common all over you. And then since we live in a commonwealth, and they seem to be awful unique about the wealth of our country, so.
It's me. On the East Coast. I live on the West Coast. We don't do Commonwealth.
Yeah.
It was me, Chief.
It's sad because that's the idea, is that you actually have to question them, and they'll adjust the bill, but in reality, you're the one that actually financed them. You got to remember the hospital is a corporation. None of these corporations can work without our trust funds that they created, because they took the gold and silver away. So therefore, you're really
the hospitals issue the birth certificate that runs the trust funds.
And they got to kick back to the doctor for that when they, kind of.
Right. Well, even when they give you a flu shot, they get $460 when they get a flu shot. And people don't realize. I mean, I put out this thing for Blue Cross Blue Shield and Kaiser and a few other ones where they were paying the doctors back on the percentage that they got, because when they were selling the medication, they get a kickback on it. So they're paying that around so that way everybody else gets the kickback. And if the vaccinations harm somebody, then they go and put that on the insurance fund for the medical insurance and then the IRS insurance. Oh, that's right. The IRS has insurance on themselves?
Well, we recently looked at one yesterday. Within the last 48 hours, it was actually the entire structure of what's going on with the government, and they wrote off quadrillions of money from a UCC1. What you can do is send them a letter of notice, put them on notice. You know, that you're the financial backer when you do the endorsement or your autograph or signature or mark, and saying, you know, I'm extending my credit to you so you can stay in business. You know, we can't come to some kind of common terms on this. You know, why is it I'm paying when I'm actually loaning you my credit? You know, it really is almost that simple. It's just a matter of comprehending how to do a letter of notice. You know, and you could probably find that online. You know, a lot of the stuff that Ed and I do, we can find online almost pretty much for free. It does take some research, but then again, you know, if it's going to save you thousands upon thousands of dollars, I don't care if it saves you $5, you know, because really it's not real. Yeah, that's what people have to get through their head. The Federal Reserve note is not real. We're not even supposed to be using it, you know, and I have to, you know, make you know, accreditations to another group that I'm in, because they're the ones that are doing a lot of research on this themselves. And, you know, God bless them, Creator bless them, whatever they want to use. You know, I'm okay with that, you know. And in reality, even though Ed says, you know, it's based upon religion, the ironic thing behind this is, okay, that the legalities from Congress and the Senate and whatnot, okay, cannot go against your religious freedoms. That's the number one out there. The number two is they cannot go against you if you have a disability. Okay, so, you know, those are the major two that you have to get into your mindset. It doesn't matter even if you don't practice religion. That's what the whole structure is. You can claim you're an atheist, okay? And you don't have to, you know, there's a big thing going on about status, you know, people filing for status. Okay, well, you know, once again, that's your privacy. Okay, and that really goes under your, you know, Fourth Amendment. You know, you're asking me for my papers, you're asking me certain questions, and you can just politely say, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm just not comfortable with it. You know, you're prying into my, you know, my situation. I mean, you should see me when I go to the bank. You know, if I go to a financial institute, I love it when they go, I'd like to see your driver's license. Well, it's not mine. And they're like, you got somebody else's? No, you see, I'm trying to explain to them it belongs to the state. Okay? But then the minute they do that, and then they ask me again, I look at them and go, can I see yours? And 9 out of 10 of them be like, well, no. Okay, then you can't ask me for mine. You see, if you're not willing to exchange your information on your driver's license with me, I do not have to give mine up. And it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the state. It was state issued, governmental issue. Okay? Same thing with your Social Security card. It's not yours. It belongs to the Department of Treasury and the IRS. And they're a private corporation.
Yeah, I got to interrupt you on that. What I did is I filed to own mine. That's what freaked the hell out of them, because I went through this when they went after my issue, and the government's done it, and I have an Inspector General's report where the local government and the governor tried to have me assassinated, that the Department of Justice says, oh, I was telling the truth, but then again, I couldn't get justice because of what you were talking about. And because of that, they don't own it, because what scared the hell out of them is I filed to own me. When I filed to own me, nobody's ever done that in their recorded record the way I did it. See, this is the point. I filed to own my birth certificate because people say, well, you don't own your birth certificate. Everybody else owns your birth certificate. Well, they gave me a birth certificate that says this is who I am, so I claimed that under my corporation name. So my corporation, a living man can represent a corporation, but a corporation cannot represent a living man. And this is the one thing people don't read: corporation rules, regulations, administrative rules.
See, because I love when he goes...
Go ahead.
I love when he goes into these explanations, because let me break it down for you, okay? He knows for a fact that it's a counterfeit system and they did it under fraud. but he filed it so that they were on notice that he knew that they did it under counterfeit and fraud. And it really is kind of that simplistic.
Well, extortion, too.
Exactly.
And identity theft.
Yeah. So that's why you're putting them on notice with your paperwork. Basically, you're putting them on notice saying, okay, I see how the game's played. Forgive me for, having to come in at this point in time because you didn't teach me at an earlier age so we could have a meeting of the minds and we could come to some better agreement under the meeting of the minds. So since you decided to go in that direction and, you're a quasi-government or a shadow government since 1861, this is kind of how I'd like to proceed. I would like to be able to, make some adjustments here and get control of the trust or come to some mutual agreement that, when you need my credit, you don't have to come and drag me kicking and screaming and beat on me with a club or threaten me with a gun. Okay. You can just be polite and ask me. Okay. I was in another discussion group not too long ago, and that was one of the things that was very interesting when we were discussing some things. It's like all these discussions on these shows, I don't, I hate to use show because once again, anything with a title to it right now has kind of got me a little bummed out because, that's what they're going by, de facto, titles of nobility, and that's how they get latches on you, and that's how they get you with bills of attainder. That's really what it leads down to. It's a bill of attainder. That's one of the ones that I posted not too long ago was, the fact of vessels. After 25 years, they're supposed to be exempt under, basically a antique law. But when I looked up the weight of a vessel, I packed on a few pounds because I've been kind of inside for a few months, but you'd have to get a whole lot more of me to come to 2,100. I think it's 2,160. Tons, you know what I'm saying, or 2130 tons. I'm like, if you're calling me a vessel right there, you're not, really looking at what a vessel is, even in your own rules and regulations, your guidelines. So, that's the interesting part.
Well, they can't do that because if they do that, they could light it off at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, that just leads back to Department of Transportation being over the Coast Guard and transportational, that we use. A lot of people don't know it. You have the right to be out here. You do not have to have a license to travel. Okay?
Well, the Department of Transportation has the paperwork in Washington, D.C. You can type in Department of Transportation, the right to travel paperwork. And it will come up and say, that's the one thing I got to redo that paperwork so I can start getting back on the road but they will send you a certified instrument saying that you have the right to travel being native. And see, I've been trying to get this stuff resolved for the last 2 years, but I've been so wrapped up with everybody else. And now I got to start getting this other stuff resolved for myself so I can start bringing this stuff out because I have the paperwork to prove how it works. But when you get overwhelmed by everybody pulling in each direction, it's entertaining.
Well, and it does challenge our mind. It is a challenge of the mind, and we love to help people. That's the bottom line of it. We're really here to help each other.
Well, and the whole point, like when you're going through these issues that, file on the court and ask them their jurisdiction. And ask them if they're going by maritime law, if they're going by military law, if they're going by statute, code, and administration rule of whatever agency they're talking about. And see, I write these letters for people all the time. And I send them to people, and they're like, well, if I put this in, am I going to get in trouble? And I'm like, are you intelligent enough to get this point that you're sending a letter to ask them the question? You're not accusing them. You're asking them a question. What direction? And see, this is the point that people are not comprehending, that you need to ask these people the directions of the circumstances that they're talking about. I used to be one of those people who used to get yelling and screaming at them. Of course, I still do at times. I don't have a problem telling even the governor off. You know, because she's a corporation. Not only that, she's a lawyer, and as the 13th and 14th Amendment, she has no right to be in office. Not only that, born in Spain, and people say, oh, well, Schwarzenegger was governor of California, they could do it. And I said, no, they cannot. The Democrats started allowing this shit back in the 1970s. Prior to that, we had a different government, and people remember not everybody was on the buy and take. I mean, I've been around different industries that I could have had a multi-million-dollar career or whatever, but I had a conscience. I had to wake up. Somebody that I used to, let's say, work with and hang out, that was extremely billionaire, major famous people, you know, that, you know, you guys know about in the media and stuff. And it's like, I spent months with these people going through this stuff, and it's like, do I want to sell my soul so I don't have rights, or do I want to stand up and be able to go fishing still? Because it's like Article 1, Section 25 of the California Constitution. You don't need a hunting and fishing license. It says it right there in the Constitution. Article 1, Section 25. Type it up right now. It'll come up. See? Go ahead.
I just want to know if you were hanging out with Howard Hughes. That's all.
Not quite, you know. Howard Hughes was before my living time, I would presume. Smart ass.
Go ahead, Chief.
Boy, did I open myself for that slap, didn't I, huh? You guys didn't have to enjoy it that much.
Come on, man.
You gotta get that sound bite.
Now, there's one that probably did hang out with Howard Hughes.
Well, hold on. Was Howard Hughes part of the KKK? Because, you know.
No, he wasn't part of the KKK.
No. If he wasn't part of the KKK, then, come on, man, was not interested in associating with him.
Oh. Oh, poor Joe. You know.
No, but anyhow, just email. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I emailed Chief you this stuff. I'm going to mail this to the producer. I want you guys to sit down and read this real point. Because when it comes down to what's going on and filing this stuff in the court, this is what I've been getting these people to start filing this stuff in the court the last few years. And, you know, it's like I've gone through so many people that, trust me, that follow me, listen to me, you know, and then go to the Kurt's Law Corner or Claus Law and all this other stuff for these lawyers. You know, even law, neighborhood law, and all this other stuff. And you guys got to realize these people in these organizations are lawyers.
Well, don't bust too hard. They've got some good information out there. They do.
I know that, but the point is that pisses me off because they're sitting their hand out when they could be writing this off and educating the general public not to have their hand off, to teach them how to write it off. That's what pisses me off.
Well, I get that. You know, they do have, you know, and I kind of see both sides of the coin, but at the same time, you know how I feel about that too. I'm not too huge on the fact that, you know, you're asking, you know, to be helped out. And if you really know the structure, we're supposed to be able to write off everything. We're even supposed to be able to write paperwork through their system so that you can have Federal Reserve notes, or, you know, the idea is they're trying to reduce the debt. And that's that's some of the things that we're working on.
And the only way that happens is if we're writing the debt to ourselves off. If you don't write it to yourself off, the debt keeps growing.
Yeah, and that's the idea, is that we're trying to also get we've been trying to hammer out something the last couple months here to send to them for, the fact that we're in the digital age now. Why do we need to do this paperwork when we ought to be able to do a digital version of it, since you guys can do that on your stuff? Why is it we can't do a digital situation, take a snapshot of the, say, the receipts and send them in so that the accounts can be adjusted? And, that's the bottom line of it, is we're trying to figure out how to get some things going. And it's not exactly the, of course, with the COVID-19 there, I actually contacted somebody at the IRS, the Treasury the other day, and I finally got somebody that was honest. I mean, she pretty much said, look, we're so jammed up right now. And, I literally busted out laughing. And she's like, are you okay? And I said, yes, it's just, so funny that you were actually honest about it. And that's one that I would, that's an individual I would like to go back to talk to, because, at least they were honest with me. We're on a common ground.
Oh, wait a minute, you're talking an honorable public servant?
Well, the way she talked, she had been doing it for a while, and she was really there just to help people. She really had that mindset.
That's what I'm talking about, an honest elected servant, or appointed servant, whatever.
The next one was trying to trip me up with questions about this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, hold up, because when we talked, you gave me a specific, set of things that you were willing to do and you weren't willing to do. And now you're stepping outside of your boundaries and you're asking me private information. And when that was said, that's when, the supervisor stepped in. So
I always love that when you get past to a supervisor. That tells you that somebody's scared. So people don't get this,
And I apologize. I just found that email that she sent me. I'll read over it, and then I'll send you the... I know for a fact that you can get the actual documentation off of... anticorruptionsociety.com. You want to click on the Judge Dale. And I can send you the Judge Dale stuff also, so that you have it. Because he has different forms there, right down to school forms for children, the smart meter stuff, and quite a few other things.
Well, yeah, and also, too, we can't forget the... guys at smartmeter.org who brought all this stuff to light before everybody else did.
You talking about Jerry?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I got to give Jerry credit. I don't personally know him, but I've had numerous conversations with Jerry over the years. And Jerry's like, we got to do this. And I'm like, yeah, but, you gotta walk through it. He's going, no, I need to have the cut version. I said, no, you can't have the cut version because we don't know the other version. The cut version doesn't mean sense to you. I've been trying to get me to say that people are that intelligent, if they don't get the basics, you know what I'm saying. You've been there, Chief. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And this is the point, that people are not paying attention. It is interesting. You look at the life that you live, and I can't bitch when it comes down to it, because I'm still free. I'm not in government housing. I'm not in some housing project. When I got my neck broken on a job, it's like, oh, you need to go get all these government contracts. You need to go to all this and do this. And it's like, see, the thing is, I never went out and asked the government for a job. See, when I grew up, my first job I had when I was 5. My first corporation at 14. Anytime I wanted a job, I would look in the phone book and call people up and say, hey, I'm a dishwasher. Hey, I'm a chef. Hey, I'm a mechanic. I can do roofing. I can sit there and do concrete work. And one thing, folks, don't get this one wrong, but if you don't know chemical mixture concrete, when you're doing concrete work, for every concrete tub mixture you do, squirt in 4 to 6 ounces of, what do they call that? Elmer's glue. Because the chemical hardening of Elmer's glue and concrete make a different thing. But, you know, Masons won't tell you that because that's one of their hidden secrets. I mean, we did a rock wall 45 years ago, and you can't even chip it.
Yeah, if you want to look that smart meter one up on YouTube, it's Minivan Jack is what it's under.
Okay. But don't forget, Jerry has a lot of good videos up.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He's like Walter J. Burien. He really does get into the context of what he was doing. You know, he actually used to run a production studio.
Yep.
So he's a good man out there. He's fighting a good fight. He really is.
And don't forget Walter Burien did the Capital One report. So if you really want to know about money and your real structure of how the finances and municipality bonds work and your jail bonds work, he's got it all right there.
If I may?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Kerry on Utah. I just wanted to make a couple of comments, if you don't mind.
No, the floor is yours.
All right, one of them was WikiLeaks made another big file dump. I found on 8kun.top, but the address is file.wikileaks.org/file. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. Another thing is you mentioned the high-tech companies doing censorship and booting people off. Yeah, and that's happening on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, big time on YouTube, and also big time on Facebook. I had several militia sites on Facebook. One of them had 6,000 members, a well-regulated militia. I think may have even been on it. I'm not sure, Ed. But they booted all the admins and shut the page down. And all the Utah militia groups they shut down. And I found out later there's Zuckerberg has a vendetta on militia groups, so that's, and conservatives.
Yeah, because his wife is from Thailand. And see, when Zuckerberg bought the land in Hawaii, do you know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
So he went after the natives and all that, and I went after and I wrote letters to the Hawaiian newspaper back then about him. And I said, Hawaii is still owned by the British government. So if he's doing this under administrative corporate law, he's committing treason. That's a federal crime. And I sent it all to all the news media in Hawaii. That's when he decided, oh, well, we're going to let them, because remember, he was going to put condos on the Native Hawaiians' lands. Because he bought 3,000 acres.
I think that's a little hypocritical of him, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's okay if they back Antifa and the Black Lives Matter, but, you know, they don't want the militia now, you know.
Well, yeah, but Black Lives Matter is the most racist organization.
Yeah, but that was the whole thing behind the young kid that defended himself out there. And, you know,
I know the fantasy behind it turned out. I dealt with a group of Black Lives Matter in front of my dad's house.
That kid that defended himself, actually, they looked at, Real Reporting looked into it. He's Hispanic, not white.
Beautiful. You know.
If I may, I was just going to point out also that...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, excuse me. That debate, they made a real clear point to bring out that Chris Lefty Wallace brought out the point that he tried to get Trump to emphatically state that he was against all white supremacist groups and militia. He put those two words, and militia, in his question, and Trump said, "Yeah, you know, he agreed to it. I got the transcript of it. I is so terrible. I mean, they get a story that the White House says the president is doing well today, taking medication, has been working with his aides, and the press says White House discloses the president has AIDS. You know, it's just terrible, and they're operated mainly. You know, there's only 6 big companies.
Well, you got to remember, most of those papers are owned by the Vatican and the Queen.
Yeah.
Well, the New Yorker is owned by the British government. Doesn't anybody comprehend that?
Well, you know, the one that gets me is he was going through a daily check regardless. Trump was going through a daily doctor's check every day, and then all of a sudden now he's got coronavirus.
Right. I think it's a cover story.
Well, look at what happened with COVID-19 coming out. We didn't get to see the trials on good old, what was her name? Hillary Clinton? And Obama.
Yeah, and not only that, let's not forget they got the Newport $2.2 trillion bailout coming up. That Pelosi is trying to take credit over Trump on it because she wants to be the next president.
Well, yeah, but she's also got $300 million of that going to the Samoans, and who does the Samoans work for? They work for Starkist, who owns Starkist.
Her husband.
Exactly.
Just follow the money. Huh? Anyway, I yield.
Well, see, what always gets to me is that people don't even pay attention to the corporations because, see, it's like when I moved to this county, this was a heavy fishing community, you know, and trust me, I made good money. I came here, I was a bouncer at a club. I was the guy that everybody used to call up to get a ride from the boats across the state of Oregon. They come in the boat and go, hey, Ed, you know, I'm over here in eastern Oregon. I need to get back over the coast. I got $300. I pay for the party. That means he covers my gas and my food. So, I mean, yeah, I go over for $300, but I'm not going in that point for commerce. There's a friend of mine that's going, hey, I got this gift. You know, I need to get home. Are you willing to do that? So I don't have to sit there and be in a commercial situation where I got to sit there and maybe have my business flaunted. That's the one beauty that I loved as a bodyguard and bouncer. You know, people paid me, and I mean, shit, I was under contract. I didn't know what happened. You know, so I mean, and that's the point. You know, and then you got these guys that are coming out with all these books. Like everybody keeps telling me, Ed, you got to write a book over your life. You wouldn't believe that. People wouldn't believe what you've been through. And it's like, that's not the point of writing a book. I'm not in it to the financial means. I'm in it so that way the people get it so the kids are not growing up in slavery. You know, why should I have to go to Eastern Oregon and go get a new, what do they call that, a $10 boat or yacht fee that you're supposed to get in Eastern Oregon, and then they got the other one that they want you to buy. What was that? The invasive species stamp that Oregon University planted to be Brazilian LED on the Pathfinder plants actually in the rivers of Oregon because it wouldn't grow in their scientific experiments. And I had all these documents and posted it up. I even had the hard copies until people in the local government threw my paperwork out and raided my house when I was in ICU. They didn't want people to know the real truth of their lives. You know, I got a scientist that lives down the road from me and going, Ed, you speak against this, that, and the other thing. And I said, yeah. I said, I know. Remember, I worked at the Senate, and I was there when you lied in your paperwork. You're a scientist, and I proved you lied. And then he storms off and walks in his house, slams his door, because, oh, you don't remember that I'm the guy who did all the research for the senators? You know, I mean, some scientific evidence, yes, it's accurate. Yes, it could be good information. But a lot of it I've done, it was all just to keep the corporation going so somebody had a job. It's like the watershed councils today. Everybody on the watershed council who graduated from Portland, Oregon State University couldn't get a job, so they put them in public funding. Prove me wrong. I'm the founder of, 13 or 30 watershed councils on the Oregon coast, going back to 84, 85. When I first came up here. 92, I wrote the Watershed Project, how you can sit there and do the rivers and streams, clean it out, and so that way you can have salmon and elk and deer, and bring back the forest and quit cutting the trees down. So, I had these, like I said, I've been there. So, anyhow, I don't mean to ramble on. Anybody else like to speak up, please go.
Oh, no, we were just having flashbacks from Below Average Joe with your ramblings.
Oh, come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on, Joe, we just slapped you.
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. Come on, man.
So, but anybody else would like to bring something up tonight? Because we got to get this stuff moving. I got an email out. Send me your email. I'll send you what I just did on some of the stuff I went through. I'm going to put this on the Oregon Crackers YouTube channel. Until I can get back on Facebook, I can't post it on Facebook. See, I've been attacked on Facebook because I have too many public employees, I guess, on my Facebook and people, and I've got to get rid of a couple that I realize that are trolls, and I just found this out in the last 2 weeks before they shut me down. So after I got shut down, now once I get back on, I can knock these people off and block them permanently. But it's putting out, and once I do that, I'll put out the troll list. Because people got to pay attention who, what, why, and how. I think there's called a business card, how we cheat them and why.
No, we cheat them and how.
Oh, man, how, I got it backwards.
That was an old Three Stooges skit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wise guy. Old Curly. Yeah.
So, anybody else would like to bring anything to the table tonight? So, anyhow, I'll let you get a couple words in, Chief, but I'd like to thank the Chief because since that we and him got connected, we're blowing a lot of things out of the water. I've been watching these people on Facebook because I'm posting up on their damn Facebook channel. I'll get this one posted on grand jury because I get going. Everybody else keeps going, Ed, you got to talk about grand juries. And I'm like, you don't get grand juries. You know, they keep telling me what a grand jury is, and I'm like, are you on a grand jury? You know, and that is the one thing. And they're going, well, I said, you have to realize the grand jury has the authority for a warrant. A judge does not. Until you start writing and talking that reality and start reading the administrative code of a court, I can't still follow these people when it comes down to it because they're trying to play both sides of the game. And doing that, we're jeopardizing our freedom. So, anyhow, Joe, you got something else you'd like to do, Chief?
I'm trying to find that stuff for Mr. B. And, you know, I'm trying to get it to him as fast as possible. I've got so much documentation. I don't know if it's on this one, the iPad, or the other phone. Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, try to get back here next Saturday, you know, bring friends, family, whatever. You know, and we'll figure out if you got something specific you want to talk about, or, you know, that you're having issues with, you know, don't hesitate to let us know. We'll try to help you out in any way, shape, and form we can. You know. So
Well, I'm still going through my medical issue with my teeth and stuff. I lost another 10% of my teeth here in the last 2 weeks. Crumbles more. I think this is just interesting because I never had a medical issue with all this stuff until after I went through all this hard stuff. So I don't want to blame that, but then again, it could be because of the medication. But then again, what choice I had to give for the benefit of my life. So that's the point that I got to ask questions that I'm getting ready to start asking. You know, hey, if you knew this, then where's the insurance covered? Where's the lawsuits that have been filed? Where's the judgments? Okay? See, we start going in this direction, you know, and start getting the questions answered instead of fighting these terrorists. You know, we got to remember, these are terrorists. Your mayor and your city council. I mean, I'm going to email this letter I just emailed to the chief, and I'm going to email myself. I'm going to get this to the city and county and do all that. Because I'm going to ask them. You know, I want to hear your response back on the information I'm providing to you. Is what I'm providing to you legal, lawful, and right? I'm waiting for your response. And I'm going to send it to the governor of Oregon and the state attorney general with the mayor and city and the entire House and Senate. Then I'm going to put these guys, I mean, they've already screwed me, you know. I mean, I'm told if I travel my covered wagon, even going to a medical issue or a family event, I'll be executed by the governor's order. I mean, I even got that from, what was that, Judge Branford. You didn't sign the paperwork. I got YouTube videos where Branford told me I'll be killed. Say, I mean, this is real what I'm telling you. People go, well, Ed, you've done this. You know, you can file all this stuff and sue them. And I'm like, you don't sue them for what? Where's the assets unless I go to their home? That's the people that you're not comprehending. You know, and unless I go to their home, do I have backing or no backing? Because this comes down to the reality of the real world. I mean, I'm talking to this guy for the Men's Correlation of Rights. We got all these federal lawsuits. We got, you know, class action lawsuits. I said, yeah, class action gets thrown out. Everybody loses, don't they? Well, we're not going to think about that. We're not going in that direction. So how much did you raise in donations? $1.2 million, $1.3 million. So that way when it's thrown out, you guys covered your administrative and job costs for the next 10 years. See, people don't comprehend how these people think in the corporation administrative works. So these people are out there throwing out this fantasy out there, and we're 501c3, 910c, whatever. And so that way we know that we're going to get your dollars. I mean, they're sending that right now. We got a campaign running for, you know, Democrats, Republican. How many billions of dollars are being sent in over this crap? You know, oh, we're going to buy the popular vote. Weren't we warned that in the Civil War? Doesn't Gettysburg remind anybody of anything that happened? So anyhow, Chief, I guess I'm apparently starting to ramble.
No, not you. Come on, man.
So, but folks, if you don't start standing up, what the hell are you doing?
Well,
we gotta get that. You're gonna make that happen. We're gonna get that thing. We gotta do. Or anytime that something comes up, we gotta do the come on, man.
I'll think about it.
Trust me, I know you come up with some word, something that you know will come up, even might be, looks the way it's supposed, but you'll come up with something. I know that.
I could, or I could have my kids say it because once I started doing, yeah, right there in the background. Come on, man. Now my wife also goes, really, dude? And I go, really, dude? Come on.
Seriously.
Oh, seriously, dude? Come on, man. Might do that one.
Well, see, the one thing is I can't bitch. I'm going back up for more medical stuff, but I can't bitch. I'm still alive. You know, died 13 times, hooked up on life support. I mean, even the producer knows I've done talk shows where I was literally on life support.
Allegedly, because I did not see the actual proof of it. I was not a physical.
Your phone number came up in your deal from the hospital.
You could have been there.
You're gonna go there.
You could have been there and used their public phone that they had. I did not see the physical.
Somebody with my resources to have a transfer.
Hey, that is.
Well, now that you guys came up with
Now that you came up
with that one, I have to put a plug in real quick, and that is when they tell you that they have a true copy. You can challenge that in a courtroom by asking, well, I wasn't there to see that you actually got it from the actual source that it was supposed to come from. So, with that note, y'all have a good evening.
Well, you're saying a true copy. That means if you're filing paperwork in anywhere you're claiming. So when you're filing your paperwork with a clerk, see, you're saying if they don't have a true copy of it, that means if you don't file 4 or 5 copies into that deal where you got a certified copy and original copy back to you, you don't have rights. And that's the people that don't get it. When you go file something at the clerk, you file 6 copies. And don't forget, 2 copies go to the clerk, 2 copies go to the commissioner, 2 copies go to you. Learn how your administrators... Oh, I forgot the 1 copy is the Secretary of State and the Treasurer. You do that, you start learning how your system works, how to file to protect the assets. All right, Chief, you're going to say goodnight then?
Yes, indeed.
So then I got to make some calls because I got to get back on Facebook, seeing that Facebook knocked me off. So I'm going through that one, so I'm going to try to get back on tonight sometime. Anyhow, with that, I appreciate the time. Producer, you have a good evening, and thank you for your time for everybody. May the Creator look over you. May Mother Earth, and without Father and Mother Earth, we don't have life, so we have no creators. Anyhow, with that, good night.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to the disclaimers by Ed Johnston. It is Saturday, October 3rd, 2020. Now, you've been listening to some really knowledgeable living men. I haven't seen any women show up here, but except my wife here, but she's my incubator, so she don't count.
Don't hook on that one.
But with that, guys, we'll see you next week. And well, yep. Goodbye, man.